A brutal war is being waged in Sudan, so destructive that some fear it will cause the worst famine this century, yet most outsiders have barely noticed. This is the story behind the world's worst war. It wasn't long ago that Sudan was on the edge of a long-awaited peace. Mass protests in 2019 called for the ousting of Omar al-Bashir, a tyrant who had controlled Sudan for 3 decades. But ultimately, it was the army rather than the people who seized power. In 2021, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the head of the Sudanese Armed Forces, or SAF, took control of the country. He governed alongside Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, known as Hemeti, the head of a paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. Today's war began as a fight for power between these two groups. Hemeti is a warlord from the western region of Darfur. He has a thirst for power, influential foreign allies, and has long led a murderous militia. In the early 2000s, Hemeti was head of a nomadic Arab militia called the Janjaweed. His horse-riding fighters helped the ruthless dictator Omar al-Bashir's regime slaughter black Africans in a conflict in Darfur. Most of Sudan is Arab, but several non-Arab tribes live in Darfur and elsewhere. These include the Zagawa, Fur, and Matalit people. These groups suffered awful persecution under Bashir. The army and the Janjaweed militia were accused of carrying out genocide against them. Perhaps 300,000 people were killed in that conflict, and 2.7 million were driven from their homes. Meanwhile, Bashir underplayed the conflict to the world.
Is the situation in Darfur continuing to deteriorate?
No, it is not true. The situation is improving.
But the International Criminal Court took action. In 2010, Bashir became the first person they charged with genocide. But despite being wanted for war crimes, Bashir continued to rule Sudan. Under him, the Janjaweed became a formal paramilitary force with tens of thousands of well-equipped troops, and adopted a new name, the RSF. The group's warlord leader, Hemeti, used his power to make money, controlling gold mines in Sudan and hiring out his men as mercenaries abroad. The RSF worked closely with Russian mercenary groups in the war in Libya, and struck lucrative deals with the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, sending fighters to aid their war in Yemen. In April 2023, rivalry between Hemeti's RSF and General al-Burhan's SAF exploded into open conflict. On April 15th, in the capital Khartoum, RSF forces raided the international airport and the presidential palace, which was later destroyed. The capital has been flattened. After brutal ground battles, much of the city is now under the RSF's control. And with the help of foreign backers like the UAE, which is credibly accused of supplying weapons to the RSF, the group has now seized control of large parts of the country. In Darfur, it seems the pattern of ethnic cleansing, even genocide, that Bashir started has continued. Last year, the RSF besieged the city of El Janina, committing atrocities against the Matalit tribe. The UN estimates that 10,000 to 15,000 people were killed last year in 2 massacres. Many found safety in the regional capital of El Fasher, until the RSF besieged that city too. Atrocities followed. The ICC is investigating allegations of widespread international crimes, and is particularly concerned about the ethnically motivated nature of these attacks. In Part 2, we will use forensic analysis and open source intelligence to investigate the RSF's actions in Al-Fasher.